How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we're going to talk about people overreacting to the George H.W. Bush funeral on the left and on the right. But before we get into all the details of all the people that have been overreacting, what I'm going to do right now is show you a clip from CNN, and I think this kind of encapsulates the reactions that have come as a result of the funeral. It should just be a moment to reflect on George H.W. Bush's life, to show the man respect. It shouldn't be this political circus, but it has turned into that, unfortunately, for some people. So go ahead and check out this video. You'll see Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon get into a little bit of a back and forth. After we get done with the video, I'll talk about what happened there, and then I'll talk about this greater thing about politicizing the funeral and people trying to talk crazy about some of the attendees that were there and also the deceased. Then I wrap it on up with a nice bow on top. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
You don't have to show respect for that kind of person. Here, let me show you what I would have done.
You don't have to.
Well, let me show you. I want to show you something. Let me show you what I would have done. Okay, come here. Come here, Don. Come here, Don.
Try to shake my hand. Poor Don. You're petty and small.
I'm not petty and small. That's real, brother. That's real. And
real
it
petty
shows
and
you
small.
this is not, nope, it's not. This is not about ideology. This is about the way someone conducts himself.
Okay, so you see what's going on. You heard that. Now, this is really crazy. Don Lemon, I mean, come on. You're at a funeral. Why would you try to grandstand and do all this kind of political stuff at a funeral? Put all the politics to the side. Put your personal grievances to the side and just respect each other at this place. Okay? Then once you get back out there on the hill, once you get back out there on the campaign trail, wherever you are, then it can be back to business as usual. But in that place, respect that place and respect each other. That's the way it should be. And I'm glad that Chris Cuomo, out of all people in the world, called Don Lemon on that. See, Don Lemon reminds me of the kind of guy that never played sports, that never had a fight, that never had any kind of real competitiveness in his life. Because I've competed with people, I played sports a little bit. I was never no, great athlete, but I played sports a little bit. I done got into a fight here and there, and I've always been trying to compete with people. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes you get upset at somebody or whatever it is. But at the end of it, as men especially, you got to be able to understand how to shake hands and move on. You may not like that person. You may actually kind of almost hate that person, but there's no reason for you to be so petty and small, just like Chris Cuomo said. Let the political stuff and your personal feelings go, at least for a moment, in this setting. You're at a funeral, you're in church, you are doing something where you have to kind of collaborate and be amongst each other. Act civil, and that's what Trump did. That's what the Obamas did. That's what the Clintons did. That's what you should do. Now, if you ask me personally, I don't like the Obamas. I don't like the Clintons. And I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of George H.W. or George W., but I'm not going to be so hateful against them, especially in a situation like that funeral. Now, let's go over to the right a little bit, because I put up a video of Bob Dole giving his last salute to George H.W. And by the way, Bob Dole, former senator, was also in World War II. He's a Purple Heart veteran. And George H.W. obviously was in World War II. I'm not sure about his particular awards, but he was 19 to 20 years old as a fighter pilot and got shot down out the sky during the war and lived with no injuries or anything severe. So these two people should be commended, if nothing else, for their service to the country during the war. But I digress. Some people just do not like the Bushes. They hate George H.W. They say he can rot in hell. He's in a fiery place now. He's better off. That's like, why do all that? A lot of people don't like the Bushes, but where's all this energy about this man before he passed away? All of a sudden, now that he's passed away, you want to have all this crazy energy. I don't like John McCain. Well, I didn't like him. He's gone now. But when he died at his funeral, I wasn't like, good riddance. It wasn't really that type of thing. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm sad that he's gone. I'm kind of glad that he's gone, only because he was obstructing the government moving forward by staying in office, although he knew he was sick. Okay, I would rather for him to not actually pass away, but to retire gracefully. That would have been the better solution. I don't want you to pass away to get out of the way. You know you're sick. You know you're dying. Go ahead and retire and just let the government keep going. He stayed in office out of spite. So I'm glad that he's gone because he was just in the way and not letting government go forward. Not because I did not like the man personally. I didn't celebrate his death because of my personal feelings toward him. I didn't celebrate it at all, but I'm glad that he's gone simply because he can get out of the way of the government going forward, which is the only reason why he was in office for like the past year or two. In the case of George H.W. Bush, he's not been in office for a long time. He's just out somewhere chilling and minding his own business. An old man, 94 years old. What's the purpose of hating on that guy? Why? Some people compare him to Hitler. They said, well, what if it was Hitler that passed away? Would you be all nice at his funeral? Would you say all these kind things? It's like, wait a minute. Let's not go down the leftist road of calling everybody literally Hitler. Let's not do that because George H.W., regardless of what you think, was not that. Okay, you could say, you know, the wars in Iraq and all that. You can be against that, but don't compare the man to Adolf Hitler. I mean, that's just really ridiculous. Okay. George H.W. was part of a bigger machine that's much bigger than him. And there's no reason to rail against this man who's part of a cog in the machine after he died at 94 years old when he's not been in government for a very long time. It doesn't make any sense. But maybe these same people that hate on this guy and his death are the same as Don Lemon, don't understand sports, don't understand competition. Donald Trump himself had a very difficult campaign against Hillary Clinton and slick willing himself to a certain extent. But after the campaign, he was able to be gracious towards them. There was some kind of award ceremony or something where he saw them in the front row and gave them a round of applause and said that these two right here are some of the best people, all this, that, and the third. This was after this big, crazy campaign, and people didn't understand. They were like, well, how can you say all these things about her, to lock her up, crooked Hillary, all this, that, and the third? How can you say all that about her, but yet still give her and her husband respect at a place and give him a round of applause? Well, you can behave certain ways in certain places when it's appropriate to do so. Okay. That's just kind of how it is. And also, competition does not mean that you hate that person. You can compete with somebody and still shake hands afterwards. That's just kind of how it is. Bob Dole and George H.W. competed against each other in 1988 for the nomination. You know, same thing with Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. They had a fierce competition with each other in 2008 for the presidential nomination. You know, obviously Barack Obama won and then did 2 terms, but they were battling against each other. It was a fierce battle. Matter of fact, the whole racist birther movement came out of Hillary Clinton's camp. So I remember when it happened, they were trying to do everything they could to discredit him so she'd be able to get the nomination. And the same thing with Trump and, you know, Lion's Head and Little Marco and all these different people that were running against him in the Republican primary. Trump came out on top and was able to get a lot of these individuals on his side. It got real deep with Ted Cruz. Remember the whole thing with his wife and all this and that, and I'm not a servile puppy dog. Remember all that stuff? But yet after that, Trump is still able to go out there, help Ted Cruz with the campaign, and Ted Cruz is in government right now. They would work together. That's how it's supposed to be. You don't carry on these grudges and these petty feelings of, you know, oh, I got to get back at them. I got to get revenge. That's not how the world operates. But if you understood how to live as a man, in my humble opinion, you would get that fact. So that is pretty much all I got to say. What say you? How do you feel about what Don Lemon said about respecting the president, shaking the hand? I mean, what would you do if you were in that situation? If you're Donald Trump, do you shake the hands of your political opponents at a funeral? Do you just cross your arms and do all this? And what if you're on the other side? What if you're Barack Obama? Do you just, you know, twist your nose up and don't shake their hands? Okay. What if you didn't like George H.W., thought he was a warmonger? Would you go to the funeral and be all salty, be all triggered, be all butthurt and upset? What are you upset about? The man's dead. What are you upset about? You know, I respect people in their death, and that's just kind of a thing about myself, a quality that I have. I'm not going to go and be disrespectful at an individual's funeral. But that is pretty much all I got to say. I look forward to hearing your comments, and whatever they are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.